Again, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
My pleasure.
So, before we get into your good work, I want to know this, and I start with this question all the time. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing the landscape of everything. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things today?
Wow, it's such a great question. And I'm so happy that you asked this question because often when I talk with people, it feels like COVID has ended and never happened. And I
Uh-huh.
think we need to unpack what has happened and how we did it and what we learned. Um, so it was interesting time because I actually moved from New York City to California right before pandemic. And I didn't know, of course, that pandemic will happen.
Yeah.
I was working at Meta slash Facebook at the time, and the change was great because I had more outdoor, but it was a massive change and how the company started to change during the same time. So for me, it was really about, I need to say it wasn't easy, but that was a moment when I started to rethink how do I want to live this time? And it really made me think about priorities and values being far from my family that's in Europe, not being able to go and see them for 2 years, moving to have a job here in California and actually going to the office only for 6 weeks and realizing there was no need for me to move cross country because we are now remote.
Yeah.
So what I say, the key learning from that moment is really that in discomfort we realign. And I think now more than ever, we need to notice when the discomfort happens and just reassess what are my priorities, what really matters to me right now.
Yeah.
Because I think those emotions, disappointment, frustration, fear, it's a sign of really, it's a discomfort, but it's a moment where we can pivot and change. And I think the challenge is that what I've learned when I moved here, I would operate at the same in the same way as I used to when I was in New York, but things changed. So when we pause for a moment and just actually acknowledge those challenging emotions, there is this space when we can reassess how we want to move forward with all of this. If I cannot see my family for 2 years, what does it mean to me? How can I establish my support system here? How I can call them more often, how I can call them on FaceTime more often. So these are great moments of discomfort that actually can serve us as a best teacher where we can realign. And it's not easy. Sometimes you need a mentor, a coach, maybe a friend, maybe your journal, but it's just something that requires commitment.
So I want to hone in on realignment. You've mentioned that a few times and you've done that in your career. So if I was to put you in front of a bunch of kids right now, let's say they're 11 or 12 years old, you're in a school, it's career day, and the kid in the back of the room is like, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
So right now, I'm an executive coach. I run my business and I work with leaders to help them just remain the best version of themselves. Because what COVID did and what we see now happening in the world is that it's really hard to manage well under pressure. And when we don't manage well, we don't treat our employees well, we don't run the companies well. So I'm so excited to be in the position where I can bring what I've learned at Facebook and Meta for 13 years, being in Europe and then New York City and then Silicon Valley, and just help leaders to show up every day as the best version. So they can help other people who just enter the workplace grow their career and enjoy where they are and create the work they're proud of. So that's what I do at the moment.
You've lived what a lot of people would consider a dream career up to this point, but I want to go back to your beginnings. When you were 12, when you were young, what was your ideal job? What did you want to do?
Oh, that's a great question. So I actually knew I wanted to be in marketing, and I wanted to be an executive.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to have teachers. At the time, we would already have classes around career planning or just ideation around what we want to do. I didn't know what marketing was at the time. It was almost 40 years ago. There
Yeah.
was no Facebook, no iPhone. I didn't know, but that suggestion came from my teacher as they were able to kind of assess what were my skills, what I was good at. I was already leading a lot of initiatives in my school. And I loved working with people. I loved communication. So they made that suggestion based on the strengths they were seeing. And it was a time when I watched a show where I saw executive women working for large companies, and I just saw how much fun they had. Because specifically, me growing up in a small town in Poland, I saw how these women were able to travel and work in this country for a few years and work in this country for a few years, and I actually made that happen for myself.
So take me back to your beginnings in Poland. What do you think were the foundational seeds of your family, your influences, your culture that allowed you to have such high dreams and high hopes?
Oh, such a great question. I reflect on this quite a lot. I would say it all goes back to hard, high work ethic and commitment and persistence. Because again, I didn't go to Ivy League school, nothing like that. And yet I actually ended up working at Facebook before IPO for 13 years. So to me, it was all about that commitment. And I was always great at school. I was very focused. So combining that focus, knowing what I want to do, getting those dreams, those early seeds, and just directing the focus in the right way. I think this is really what brought me where I am today. So working hard, but I need to say that at some point I needed to reassess those values, if you will, because hard work and determination, this is what got me so far. And this was on my A list, if you will, of priorities. But at some point, especially in my late 20s, I needed to add health to my list because as an ambitious person and high achiever, when you are younger, it's easier to just be on a go and do.
Yeah.
And especially someone who grew up with fewer chances. Sometimes I was thinking I have only one chance. I would just put 120% to everything. And it's great. But I think if now, knowing more, I'm so happy that after experiencing burnout, my list of values expanded and it has health on the list because I know now that I think better. My executive thinking ability is better. There is so much research done about stress, and that when we are too stressed, we are not actually as smart. Our IQ drops. So I think to answer your question again, it started with that determination and focus and thinking very early on at age of 12, what is that I want to do and being inspired by role models. But then also taking those challenging moments in late 20s of overcoming burnout, what else I may need to add to the list so I can be productive when I'm 65. I don't want to be on a couch retired. I want to still contribute. And that starts with also how I operate at the moment.
So was it always your dream to come to America and have this career?
It was not directly, or maybe something I didn't realize. However, I'm sorry. Looking back, it's interesting because my mom always wanted to come to America,
Yeah.
and she didn't receive her visa. It was many years ago. There were different regulations in place. And then I started to learn English when I was 6, and she really wanted us to study English. So I think maybe not consciously, but there was always this kind of dream in my family and some of the uncles, they moved to America during the Second World War. So somehow I think it was in my DNA without realizing. But it formally became the dream when I started to work for Facebook in Europe, and I met people who came from New York City to work in Ireland. And the way they were describing New York City, I was so inspired and I made it a plan. I really wanted to transfer internally. So it became a more intentional dream when I was 24 or so, and I moved to New York City to work for Facebook.
Yeah. So you had mentioned seeing very powerful female figures that were in business, and you really wanted to do that. It's a two-part question. Who was the first person from afar that you saw that you emulated? And who did you actually meet in your
Mm,
life in the beginning that made you think that this is it? This is an ideal that I would love to have.
that's a great question. So in early on, I probably will not remember specific women. I know they worked for the company called Avon, which I know is American beauty brand.
Yeah.
And I just saw this TV show. They were describing how they work with people in the US and people in Malaysia. And I'm like, wow, that's a cool job that you get to know people from different countries. But later on, when I was applying for Facebook, I had a chance to listen to Sheryl Sandberg because as part of the process, they sent me all these great videos and she did a TED talk. And that was like a wow moment. I was actually in a moment of choosing, do I want to work for a company in Germany, creative agency, or do I want to move to Ireland and work for Facebook? At the time, it was very small. It was 5,000 people. It was before IPO. And because I heard from her and how she talked about success and things you need to focus on, I just felt she really cared about people. And I had the chance to meet her in person when I moved to the States.
Yeah.
She was in the company for such a long time and she made a huge impact on me. And she still creates amazing impact for
Yeah.
women.
I was listening to a book. It's been some months ago, and it's about how things go viral. Like, what is the nature of something that blows up? And for some reason, in that book, they honed in on Poland, and they talked about the history of Poland and how the people have always had to rise. Like, it's almost like this phoenix notion. There's been wars, there's been all these setbacks, but the people always find a way of coming together and being resilient. How much of living and being in Poland has given you this backbone, these chlorides, to have this career, this outlook that you've had in your career?
Well, thank you for asking.
Yeah,
This is really my foundation, and I probably need to appreciate more and more because you are right. The country went through so many changes,
yeah,
and recently I had a chance to learn a bit more about my family history. And what I learned is that the region where we live, it's been in transition for 1,000 years. It's the region between it's Poland, but it's in this corner where the border changed so many times. It was Austria, it was Ukraine, it was Russia. So for 1,000 years, it was just moving all the time. And I think what I appreciate, some of the messages I received from my parents and my grandparents and my family was, it's all gonna be all right. Like we're gonna figure this out as long as we have each other. And it sounds so simple, but it's like each time when I go through a challenging moment, I always say it's we're gonna figure this out.
yeah,
And as long as we have each other. Um, And it's so important to remember. And I have a proof that they went through so many things. I still have a grandfather, he's 95,
wow,
and he was 12 when the Second World War started.
wow,
And he still is, his health is declining a little bit, but like his resilience, he's so proud that he lived through the war and he lived through such a difficult history, communism, all that. And I have that awareness that I can really go through anything because
yeah,
my family, my country went through anything. It's not like I always remember that, but I need to remind myself that it's all gonna be all right.
yeah. The one thing about being successful in business is you almost have to have that cat-like quality of curiosity. And I'm curious if you were to be able to go into a time machine and go back in time and meet a relative in your bloodline that you never got to meet and talk to, who would you love to have met and talked to?
Ooh, um, it's a very good question. I would love to meet several of them, but I would be really curious to go like several centuries back. Um, and just learn more about that region because there
Yeah,
was a specific moment around I think it was 12th century or something like that where the borders changed again and somehow in my reflection in my journaling this moment came to my mind and I checked in the history that in fact there was something happening. So I would love to learn from them because it's what I gather from my ancestors and my family. There was always this desire. They almost did like an assessment that this region will always be in this transition. And it feels like, and I start to have some proofs that there was desire in my family to actually move. because they just came to a conclusion that it's always going to be messy and chaotic. And not all of them had the resources. And I feel like I kind of made that dream come true for
Yeah,
many of them. And I think I would love to thank them for that idea because they already had the clarity that this is not going to work. The location is always be tricky because so many different people are interested in that.
yeah,
So I'm very proud. I would love to learn from them how they got to that clarity because it's
yeah,
hard to give up on what you love
yeah,
and your roots. But I'm so proud for the strength they had about just being clear. It's not going to work out long term because it's just a tricky location.
yeah.
And so I think I would go back to that moment.
Yeah. You know, the backbone and strength of this country has always been that idea of immigration. My great grandparents came from Italy to Ellis Island. All of us came from somewhere. And in your position of taking your life to New York City, what was it like when you stepped off that plane? You knew you were in a new country, a new home. What kind of culture shock, what kind of exhilaration, what was going on when you realized part one of this dream was coming true?
Oh, wow. Well, New York City, this is amazing. I landed with a jet lag and all that, and I
Yeah.
would listen to Alicia Key song about
Yeah.
New York, probably like on replay, probably like for hours, just sitting close to Times Square. I know locals would probably not go there to relax, but I just love that movement. And it felt like I felt in New York City. I felt like people. It was truly a place where people came with a dream or a reason. So
Yeah.
in all this chaos and fast pace, I felt there was intention behind.
Yeah.
So I actually I loved it. What was refreshing for me to see is that like with Poland, for example, because people went through so much, sometimes they don't believe in themselves because when you go through so many setbacks and you are in the middle between like two big countries who like to fight, you kind of make yourself smaller sometimes. And in New York, I felt like people go after what they want.
Mhm.
They don't hold back. And if there are some things on their way, they will work through that a bit more. And I think in Poland, I saw this as well, but I just saw a little bit more conviction and a little bit more confidence versus maybe operating from a place of doubt. Like this happens so many times, I won't try again. And in New York, I felt like, well, I can try for 100 times, no
Yeah.
problem. So that was so refreshing.
Yeah. So obviously you've lived your dream. You dreamed of getting to this point of living this life. And I'm curious, what was the difference between flying to America, having this dream of this career, and actually being able to live it? What's what's the difference between the dream and reality for you?
That's a great question. It didn't always feel like a dream.
Right. Right.
And because you achieve your dream, you don't know actually. The best part is when you get to the point you wanted to get to, sometimes we forget to even appreciate the moment and you forget, oh wow, this is exactly what I wanted and taking a space to celebrate that. But there were so many moments when I would be reminded, wow, this is amazing. The opportunities I received when being in New York City, it truly felt like being in a movie.
Yeah.
But it came with a cost. Like there were some bumps on the way, of course. Not being from here and then needing to adjust to different working culture. But these were all great learnings. And I think my takeaway was that when you achieve your dream, it doesn't mean it will be always all rosy and comfortable and easy and calm.
Yeah.
Uh, when we achieve our dream, we already expand our version of ourselves. So there is more growth, and growth is uncomfortable. So there will be a bump on the way. But it's important for me to remember what I've learned is that when you pass that bump, there will be another thing, and you will actually learn something new and grow even further. So that was just I think, key takeaway is that a dream doesn't mean it's going to be easy and all positive emotions. There will be growth, there will be discomfort, and we need to lean to those moments of discomfort because these will be the best teachers. How we need to grow, what are the new things we need to learn to keep succeeding.
So, who's been a consistent inspiration or hero for you in your life and your evolution to where you're at today?
Oh wow, so many heroes. I read probably 30 books a year.
Yeah.
But I would say some of the books I keep coming back to, especially recently. I love Michelle Obama
Yeah.
and her book Becoming. She talks a lot about finding steadiness in a flux where the ground doesn't feel steady. And I have so much respect for all the insights she shared, and especially the what makes our dream and journey a little bit more enjoyable, even when we face bumps, is having the support of people. And she talks about this concept of kitchen table and kitchen table. Who are the people you will bring to your kitchen? Friends, family, mentors, coaches, therapists that can, lift you up, but also keep you accountable. They may
Yeah.
challenge you in a loving way because they want you to be your best version, but the people you can trust. And I think the times we live in, we need to create those kitchen tables for ourselves, the system of support. So I keep coming back to her book quite a lot lately.
Yeah, I read that last year, and when everybody was talking about her running for office, I'm like, you clearly haven't read her book because there's no way that she's going to run.
Yeah,
It isn't going to happen. But yeah,
sadly.
it's a remarkable story. And it's interesting to hear how Barack was in the beginning and how he's just matured into his role as a president. Because a lot of what he's been consistently happened in the very beginning when they met. It's always, and I'm listening to Bill Clinton's biography right now. And it's the same thing. Like he is still that kid from Arkansas, but he just got the highest office in the land, but nothing really changed as far as his integrity and his background and what he wanted to do in the beginning. And I think that's what Barack was. And it's the same thing that Michelle's doing now. Like she's going through all of these press junkets and they're asking her the same kinds of questions. And she's like, have you read anything about me? I'm not going to run for president. I'm not getting into the middle of this. I wouldn't have done it. So it's interesting how as much as they've changed, they've maintained their integral, like, bedrock of who they are.
Right? And
Yeah.
it's so important to somehow work through that clarity. What
Yeah.
really matters to us. It takes time, but getting that, and that may change for some people over time. But to your
Sure.
point, some things remain true
Yeah.
and the same throughout the life.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Facebook and Meta is undoubtedly been one of the most powerful forces in social media for a long, long time, decades. What did you like the best about being in that environment? Who did you look forward to working with? Who did you look forward to talking to? Because behind the facade of this major thing, none of us really will ever understand. But when you were on the inside, what was it on a cellular human level that you look forward to every day?
Oh, wow. Such a great question. And also to clarify, for me, it was 13 years. And the first 10 years, it was Facebook. And then we went through the rebrand and it was Meta.
Yeah.
So I need to say and be very transparent that these were very two different experiences for me.
Yeah.
Also, as the company grew from 5,000 to 80,000. And what I loved the most was probably those early years, and especially year 1 to 10. To your point, what I loved, absolutely loved about working at Facebook at the time, the culture was really collaborative. And there would be this poster on the wall saying uh, something around that nothing at Facebook is someone else's problem, meaning that I may come to you because I work on something and I'm trying to figure this out. And it's possible that it's not within your scope. But in other companies, you often hear it's not me, like just a little quick direct, and it's a dead end street.
Yeah.
But if you were not working on this with me, you would simply suggest, oh, I may not have space for this, or it's not within my scope. However, I know this person. And there will be moments when that's how I moved to New York, because I was able to already work with people from New York while being in Europe. I was managing automotive industry, working with brand like Nissan. And I would be connected to people in LA or Austin who worked on automotive industry. And we would exchange learnings. We would not feel like we compete. We would exchange case studies. So I think that was really inspiring to see that attitude that we are here as one team and we are here to solve things together. It makes sense that your priorities may not align with mine, but still there was this commitment that I would try to redirect you or help in some way. So there was always this productive conversation, if you will. And that just opened so many doors and allowed people who worked in other countries connect with someone from Australia or Brazil or Singapore.
Yeah.
So that truly made me, I couldn't wait to go to work.
Yeah. Interesting. So let me ask you this. As you segued into coaching, into a different avenue of your career, when did you realize you made the right decision? Was there a client? Was there a moment? Was there an epiphany? What was it that made you totally comfortable that you made the right choice to segue that way in your life?
Yeah, so it all kind of, if you ask about a specific moment, it actually comes back to COVID because when COVID happened and I moved to California, and there was no FaceTime, obviously. I just felt like I'm not connected anymore. And I felt a lot of value of working at Facebook was actually from those mini informal moments when you went to cafeteria or cafeteria or micro kitchen, grab a coffee, and you would meet someone you never met before from a different team. And sometimes that conversation would somehow contribute to what you work on. It would spark a new idea. And there is so much science, of course, behind that relational knowledge and intelligence. So I really miss those in-person moments, which is why I created a mentorship program at that time, because there was no other solution, no other system in place. And I wanted women specifically to come together from different orgs, engineering, sales, legal, marketing, and just stay connected. And it felt like, oh, wow, what if I can do it full time? So I was working, and at that time, I proceeded, of course, with the official certification to become a coach. I'm fully certified in several modalities, and I tried to move internally. My idea was to work internally as a coach, but unfortunately, the company made a decision not to invest in those resources. So, and like many companies at the moment, they don't have that many internal coaches. So my strategy was let's pivot and perhaps contract with companies I worked with before and run my own company. So, and just I think to wrap everything up, I always wanted to be a teacher. I have this memory being with my two younger brothers when they were 3 and 5. I was 7. I would play having school with them, and they would sit for an hour, being so small as a boy.
Yeah.
And they would escape eventually. But I really wanted to be a teacher, and I'm so happy to be in this point, and um, I'm so happy I was able to contribute in different ways before during my time at Meta, and now formally just bringing additional qualifications.
So if you had a dream tonight, you could go back to that era when you were really young in Poland and you walked in the room with at your age now with like a coffee table book in your hand. And you went up to that young version of you and you handed it to her and she's confused and you're like, "This is how your life turned out." Would that young version of you be surprised?
She would not be surprised. She would be just actually she would tell me, I knew we're gonna get there. I knew.
Yeah.
Just trust the path even more.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you give her any advice?
I will just tell her, just trust the path. Because looking back, it's easy to say, oh, every moment led to another. And it seems a little linear and logical, but it's not.
Yeah.
So I would just tell her, trust the path. Things will not always make sense. Things will feel messy sometimes. But if you stay true to who you are, this passion, I was in sales, the passion of teaching others and the values you have and being curious and learning, you're gonna get where you want to get to. So just stay who you are.
Yeah. So, of this life that you've led, of evolution, of success, of career changes, everything that's happened, what are you ultimately the happiest about, the proudest of?
It's a great question because what I'm really the proudest about is having my home, having my husband, having my family,
Yeah.
good relationships. And I am very happy that I succeeded on a career standpoint because financial stability is important and I'm able to travel or buy healthy food. So it's really important, obviously. But what I'm most proud of is really the person I became throughout the journey and staying someone who acts with integrity and treats people in a kind way, even in the time of pressure. I think that's what matters in the end, just finding to have a joy on the journey and treat people well and helping others to be the best version of themselves as well, even when we go through tough times. So I think how I show up, I'm most proud of.
Yeah. So speaking of the collective, of everyone that knows you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, everyone that knows you, but you run the show, what's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I ask this question to my husband quite a lot.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, he would say that it's interesting, the first word he would use that I'm very caring. And he also knows that I'm very ambitious and focused and that I'm playful. And I like to be playful and create space for playfulness and things like that. So they often call me a role model, but I don't want to be the role model. I'm happy they think that way. But I think they admire that focus and that determination, and it inspires them to go through tough times with focus, but also with kindness and trusting that it's gonna be all okay in the end. We have another example. I can serve as a case study almost. So
Yeah.
that makes me proud.
So being on the inside of something as big as Facebook and Meta, when Mark Zuckerberg started his journey, it was about connecting people. It was about having a platform that did not exist. Now it seems synonymous in various tech communities, this idea of connectivity, but it wasn't a part of our world at the time. If you look 20 years into the future, what do you think is going to be the next thing that's going to connect us, that's going to be groundbreaking, that's going to potentially be innovative, that's going to change our lives?
But that is such a great question. And obviously, there is so much going on with AI, and obviously, Meta is investing a lot, and so many other companies here in San Francisco and across the world. So, definitely, we're going to have more technologies to stay connected. And that's probably quite obvious already. I do believe, though, that with the rise of AI, we may be wanting to keep the human aspect of it even more, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yep.
Um, like if you buy a mug, let's say at Target, I love Target. It's like a Disneyland for me. It's lovely, but if you bought a handmade mug from a local business, it will have a slightly different meaning. A
Yep.
person will actually explain the story. So I think there will be amazing technologies. We will be able to, the world will be just more equal. You can be in a small town anywhere in the world and experience Stanford through virtual reality. You are able to go to Rome virtually. You can connect with people around the world. And that's, I think, will just bring more opportunity to people, which I love. In the same time, I do believe that we will probably appreciate the human aspect and
Yeah.
and I believe that it will not go away because there is this fear what's going to happen. I think there will be still a lot of jobs for people. They will change because I think AI can help us work faster, but we still need that human creativity, ability to connect
Yeah.
things differently. So I think it will be a mix.
It's interesting. I love that answer because I think about music, about how we went back to vinyl. Like after all of this technological evolution, you could have anything you want digitally as much as you want it on your phone or whatever device. And now we've gone back to vinyl and the story of an album from start to finish, the analog glow, all of those things. And I think, I always think about growing up in the 80s and everybody was like, keeping it real, man, keeping it real. And we genuinely are at a point where that catchphrase means more than we ever thought it would mean.
I couldn't agree more.
So it is interesting. It's almost as though as humanity, as humans, we've evolved to such a point that we almost have to go back through the timeline and revisit what we didn't take seriously at the time.
Absolutely. And some of the challenges we experience right now, isolation, when we look at mental health
Yeah.
metrics from World Health Organization, we will really want to be connected in an authentic way. And I think technology can often open up more opportunities, but in the same time, to your point, like how we stay authentic and want the real side of
Yeah.
humanness.
Yeah, for sure. So if anybody wants to take the next step, they want to reach out, they want to hire you, they have questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
They can go to my website. We can probably add in the notes for the show. They can book complimentary consultation. I'm happy to meet for half an hour. So yeah, my website will be a great resource. It's veronikasobolak.com.
Okay.
And, and I'm looking forward to connecting with people.
Absolutely. I will put those links in the show notes. What a refreshing conversation. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your time and story today. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And same to you. It was a
Okay.
pleasure.
Yes.